Found protection in wife's purse. My revenge was a loaded pepper spray. You like it spicy, don't you, Sarah? This was shaping up to be one of those days where you'd be searching for your wallet in your wife's purse and instead unearth a bottle of high-end personal lubricant, definitely not purchased for your enjoyment. Beside it, a box of high-end condoms, the expensive kind she always claimed gave her a rash. I'm David, 35, a laptop repairman in this sleepy Connecticut town where everyone's business is everyone else's. My wife, Sarah, is an executive assistant at Morrison & Associates, a prestigious law firm downtown. She's always been ambitious, relentlessly climbing the corporate ladder as if her stilettos were custom designed for the ascent. Standing in our kitchen that Tuesday morning, clutching the evidence of my wife's extracurricular activities, a cold, calculating dread settled in my chest. Most men would storm into their wife's office, create a scene, demand answers, but I'm a methodical sort, the kind of guy who reads instruction manuals cover to cover and backs up his hard drive twice daily. So instead of a direct confrontation, I opted for a more creative approach. That evening, while Sarah showered, I carefully opened the lubricant bottle with the precision of a master watchmaker. Half the contents were discreetly disposed of down the drain, replaced with a concoction I'd been saving since my college days, a potent mixture of brilliant green dye, the kind used in those obnoxious fountain pranks, and enough pepper spray to bring a grown man to tears, even in the absence of a blustery onion-chopping session. The condoms received a similar, albeit more delicate, treatment. A sewing needle, wielded with surgical accuracy, created minuscule holes invisible to the naked eye, yet large enough to render them utterly unreliable. For maximum effect, I muttered, channeling my inner mad scientist. Sarah emerged from the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, looking utterly innocent, her expression suggesting that butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. "How was your day, honey?" she asked, her voice sweet and unassuming. "Same old routine," I replied, my eyes scrutinizing her face for any hint of guilt. Nothing. She could have won an Oscar for that performance. Over dinner, she mentioned working late again. A significant case, she explained, requiring an all-nighter at a conference center in Hartford. Thompson, Robert Thompson, senior partner at her firm, a distinguished silver-haired fox, divorced, driving a Porsche, and seemingly convinced his law degree made him irresistible to married women. "Which conference center?" I asked casually, twirling spaghetti around my fork. "The Hampton Suites by the interstate," she replied. "You know, the one with the swanky business center?" "The Hampton Suites, where rooms are rented by the hour if you know the right people." That night, while Sarah slept peacefully beside me, likely dreaming of her upcoming business meeting, I made my preparations. A tiny GPS tracker was subtly affixed under her car seat. Modern technology is a marvel, especially when you know how to exploit it. 3 days later, my phone buzzed with a location alert. Sarah's car was parked at the Hampton Suites at 3:00 p.m. on a Wednesday, during what she'd claimed was a client meeting downtown. I drove over, parked discreetly behind a landscaping truck, affording me an unobstructed view of the parking lot, and settled in to wait. 20 minutes later, Sarah emerged from room 237, adjusting her hair and smoothing down the black dress I'd purchased for our anniversary. Behind her walked Thompson himself, straightening his tie with the smug self-satisfaction of a man who'd just scored a touchdown. I watched them embrace, not a professional handshake, but a passionate kiss that left lipstick on his collar and my marriage in ruins. Sarah was wearing the red lingerie set she'd claimed was too uncomfortable for everyday wear. My phone's camera captured everything: timestamps, GPS coordinates, their faces crystal clear. But photos weren't enough. I needed the complete performance. The following week, I called in sick and established a more thorough surveillance operation. Nothing dramatic, just a patient man with binoculars and a thermos of coffee, meticulously observing their routine. Every Tuesday and Thursday, the same dance repeated: Sarah would text me about overtime, then meet Thompson at the Hampton Suites. On Thursday, I booked the room directly beneath theirs. The Hampton Suites might appear luxurious, but the walls proved thin enough to overhear every word of their intimate conversations. Her husband's completely clueless. Thompson's voice drifted down through the ceiling. Sarah says he spends more time with computers than with her. Poor bastard probably thinks romance is fixing her laptop. Sarah's laughter, sharp and brittle like fingernails on a chalkboard, followed. Danny's sweet, but he's so predictable. Boring. Really? You know what excitement he brought to our marriage last month? A new password manager. What he doesn't know won't hurt him, Thompson chuckled. That's where he was profoundly wrong. For the next hour, I listened as they systematically dismantled my character, my career, even my breakfast cereal preferences. Every insult was another nail in their respective coffins. When they finally departed, Thompson strutting like a peacock, Sarah practically glowing, I made my move. His silver Porsche sat under a security light, pristine and gleaming. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. I had far grander plans. Sarah came home that evening complaining of severe stomach cramps. I think I ate something bad at lunch, she groaned, making her third trip to the bathroom in 20 minutes. Poor baby, I said, offering her ginger ale. Maybe you should take tomorrow easy. The next morning, my gym buddy called with astonishing news. Dude, you'll never believe what happened to that lawyer Thompson yesterday. Had some kind of medical emergency during his power lunch. Explosive digestive issues right there in the middle of the country club dining room. I nearly choked on my coffee. No kidding. Word is they had to call paramedics. Guy was doubled over, sweating profusely. They're saying it might have been food poisoning. Phase 1 was working flawlessly. 2 weeks later, Sarah returned home, pale and trembling. She sat me down at the kitchen table, her hands shaking as she reached for mine. Danny, we need to talk, she whispered. Something happened. My heart rate spiked, but I maintained a neutral expression. What kind of something? I asked. There was an incident at the hotel today. Her voice was barely a whisper. Robert and we were having a meeting, and something went terribly wrong. What kind of wrong? I pressed, though I already knew the answer. Sarah's face crumpled. We both ended up in the emergency room. There was some kind of chemical reaction. We're both covered in this green stuff that won't wash off. It burns, Danny. It burns everywhere. I had to bite the inside of my cheek to suppress a grin. Chemical reaction. The doctor apparently described it as industrial dye mixed with irritants. Robert suspected sabotage and threatened to involve the police and a private investigator. That's terrible, I said, mustering all the concern I could feign. Are you okay? Do you need to go back to the hospital? She shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. I already went. They gave me some cream for the burning, but the green, they say it might take weeks to fade completely. That evening, while Sarah soaked in an oatmeal bath, attempting to soothe the irritation, I received a call from my cousin Mike, who works security at the Hampton Suites. Danny, you've got to hear this, Mike whispered. We had the craziest incident today. 2 people in room 237 had some kind of medical emergency. Paramedics said they'd never seen anything like it. Both victims covered head to toe in bright green dye, screaming about burning sensations. That's wild, I replied, maintaining a carefully neutral tone. Here's the kicker. It happened during what was obviously an affair. Guy's a big-shot lawyer. Woman's married to someone else. Both of them trying to explain to paramedics why they were in a hotel room together, covered in mystery chemicals in their underwear. Sounds embarrassing. Embarrassing doesn't cover it, Mike chuckled. There were other guests filming with their phones. This thing's going viral. Green lovers caught in chemical romance is trending on social media. I hung up, allowing myself a small, satisfied smile. Phase 2 was exceeding all expectations. The next morning, Sarah emerged from our bedroom looking like a radioactive Christmas elf. The green dye had intensified overnight, creating a mottled pattern that no amount of makeup could conceal. Her eyes were still red and puffy from the pepper spray residue. "I can't go to work like this," she wailed, staring at herself in the hallway mirror. "Everyone will see. Everyone will ask questions." "Maybe you should call in sick," I suggested. "Tell them you had an allergic reaction to something." My phone rang. Thompson's name flashed across the screen. Sarah lunged for it, but I answered first. "Danny, this is Robert Thompson from Sarah's firm." His voice was hoarse, likely from screaming. "We need to talk." "There's been a serious incident involving your wife." "Oh," I replied innocently. "What kind of incident?" "Someone deliberately sabotaged us, poisoned us. This was an attack, and I have reason to believe you might be involved." Sarah frantically shook her head, mouthing, "Don't say anything." "That's a serious accusation, Mr. Thompson," I said calmly. "Are you saying someone tried to hurt my wife?" "Your wife and I were conducting business yesterday when we were both exposed to some kind of chemical. We're talking about assault charges here." "Business?" I let the word hang in the air. "What kind of business requires you to be in a hotel room together, Mr. Thompson?" Silence on the other end. Sarah's face went white beneath the green tint. "I think you know exactly what I'm talking about," Thompson finally said, his lawyer instincts kicking in far too late. "Actually, I don't," I replied cheerfully, "but I'd be happy to discuss it." "Maybe we should meet somewhere public with witnesses. I'm sure my lawyer would love to hear about the business you've been conducting with my wife." "Your lawyer?" "Oh, yes. See, I've been documenting some interesting patterns in Sarah's behavior lately. Unexplained absences, mysterious purchases, hotel receipts. I'm sure it's all perfectly innocent, but in situations like this, it's important to have legal representation." The line went quiet, except for Thompson's ragged breathing. "I'm hanging up now," he said finally. "But this isn't over." "No," I agreed. "I don't think it is." After I hung up, Sarah stared at me with a mixture of horror and dawning realization. "You did this," she whispered. "You knew about us. You planned this?" "Knew about what?" I asked innocently. "Don't play dumb, Danny. You sabotaged the... You put something in the..." She couldn't finish the sentence. "I put something in what, Sarah?" "Your work supplies. Your business materials." I was enjoying this far more than I probably should have. "Or are you talking about the personal lubricant I found in your purse? The one sitting next to the box of protections that you supposedly can't use?" Her face crumpled. "It's not what you think, really. Because what I think is that my wife has been having an affair with her boss for months, lying to my face and using our money to pay for hotel rooms where she can mock my marriage and my manhood. That's not true. Should we call the Hampton Suites and ask about their security footage? Or maybe check your phone records for all those work-related text messages you've been sending to Mr. Thompson?" Sarah sank into a kitchen chair, the green dye on her skin making her look like a defeated leprechaun. "How long have you known?" she asked quietly. "Long enough to get creative." She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. "What do you want?" "I want you to understand something," I said, sitting across from her at our kitchen table. "For months, you and Thompson have been playing games with my life, laughing at me, planning around me, treating me like some pathetic fool who couldn't see what was happening in his own marriage." "Danny, I'm not finished," she began, but I held up a hand. "You used our home as your base of operations. You used our bed to plan your affairs. You used our money to buy supplies for your romantic adventures. And through it all, you looked me in the eye every morning and lied." She was crying now, green-tinted tears running down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. It just happened." Robert was charming and you were always working and I felt neglected." "Stop," I interrupted. "Just stop with the excuses. You made choices, adult choices. Now you get to live with adult consequences." "What kind of consequences?" Before I could answer, my phone rang. Thompson again. "Don't answer it," Sarah begged. "Please, Danny, he's panicking. He thinks you're going to ruin his career." "Isn't that interesting?" I mused, letting it go to voicemail. "He's worried about his career, but not worried about destroying our marriage." The voicemail was 3 minutes of Thompson threatening legal action, demanding meetings, and generally sounding like a man whose world was crumbling around him. I played it on speaker so Sarah could hear every desperate word. "He's scared," she said when it finished. "He should be." That afternoon, while Sarah hid in our bedroom trying various home remedies to remove the green staining, I received a visit from Thompson himself. He stood on my front porch looking like an enraged, Incredible Hulk, green dye covering his face, neck, and hands, his expensive suit wrinkled and stained. "We need to talk," he said through gritted teeth. "Absolutely," I agreed, stepping outside and closing the door behind me. I wanted this conversation to happen where the neighbors could see. "You poisoned us," he stated flatly. "I don't know how you did it, but I know it was you." "Poisoned you?" I feigned confusion. "Mr. Thompson, are you feeling all right? You look unwell." "Cut the crap, Danny. You found out about the affair and you booby-trapped something. I want to know what it was and how you did it." I pulled out my phone and started recording. "I'm sorry. Could you repeat that? You mentioned an affair." His eyes widened as he realized what he'd just admitted. "Stop recording. This is my property, Mr. Thompson. I have every right to record conversations here. Now, you were saying something about an affair involving my wife. You know perfectly well. Actually, I don't know anything for certain, but you just confessed to having an affair with Sarah on my security camera." I pointed to the small device mounted under our porch eaves. "Would you like to elaborate on that?" Thompson's face went from green to purple. "You can't use that recording." "Actually, I can. Connecticut is a one-party consent state for recordings, and since we're on my property, I have even broader rights. This conversation is completely legal." He looked around frantically, noticing for the first time that several neighbors were watching from their yards and windows. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice dropping to a whisper. "What do I want?" I pretended to consider the question. "Well, let's see. I want my wife to stop lying to me. I want her to stop using our money to fund her romantic adventures. I want you to stop seducing married women in cheap hotel rooms. And I want both of you to understand that actions have consequences." "This was an attack," Thompson said desperately. "Chemical attack." "What for? You still haven't told me what I supposedly did." "And more importantly, you still haven't explained what you were doing in a hotel room with my wife when this mysterious attack occurred." He was trapped, and he knew it. Any complaint he filed would require him to admit to the affair, explain his presence in a hotel room with Sarah, and detail how he came to be exposed to whatever had turned him green. "I want you to stay away from my wife," he said finally. "Funny thing," I replied. "I was about to say the same thing to you." Thompson turned and stalked back to his Porsche, which looked even more ridiculous now with a green-stained driver behind the wheel. As he drove away, I waved to Mrs. Chen from next door who'd been watching the entire conversation from her garden. "Everything okay, Danny?" she called out. "Just fine, Mrs. Chen, just fine." That evening, Sarah confronted me directly. She stood in our living room, still green but wearing her best attempt at righteous indignation. "Robert says you're trying to destroy his career," she announced. "He says you're going to send that recording to his law firm." "Am I?" I asked, not looking up from my laptop. "Are you?" "Depends on how much more lying you plan to do." She sat down heavily on our couch, the same couch where she'd probably planned dozens of rendezvous with Thompson. "What do you want to know?" she asked. "Everything," I said. "When it started, how long it's been going on, what you've spent, who else knows, everything." For the next 2 hours, Sarah confessed. It had started 6 months ago at the firm's Christmas party. Thompson, recently divorced, had been charming, attentive in ways she claimed I wasn't. What began as flirtatious conversations had escalated to lunch meetings, then coffee dates, then afternoon hotel visits. It was never about love, she insisted. It was just excitement, adventure, something different. Something different from your boring husband and your boring marriage. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. I heard you say it to Thompson at the hotel. Remember when you were discussing how predictable and boring I am? Her face flushed beneath the green tint. You were listening. I was gathering evidence for the divorce. The word hung between us like a sword. Divorce? Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. Did you think there was another option? Did you think I was going to just pretend this never happened? Go back to being the clueless husband while you and Thompson had your laughs? We could try counseling, marriage therapy, she offered. People work through affairs all the time. People work through affairs when both parties want to save the marriage, I countered. When there is remorse and commitment to change. What I'm seeing from you is regret that you got caught, not regret for what you did. Sarah was crying again, but I felt nothing. The woman sitting on my couch wasn't my wife anymore. She was a stranger who'd been wearing my wife's face while she betrayed everything we built together. I made a mistake, she sobbed. A terrible mistake, but it's over now. Robert's too scared to continue. We can start fresh. There is no fresh start from this, Sarah. You didn't make a mistake. You made hundreds of deliberate choices over 6 months. Every lie, every hotel meeting, every text message, every time you looked me in the eye and lied about where you'd been. Those weren't mistakes. They were choices. My phone rang. Unknown number. Don't answer it, Sarah pleaded. It's probably Robert. He's been calling all day, panicking about his reputation. I answered anyway, putting it on speaker. Danny, this is Robert. Listen, we need to work something out. This whole situation has gotten out of hand. You think so? I replied conversationally. I'm prepared to offer you compensation for your discretion. We can all walk away from this mess quietly. Sarah's eyes widened. Even she hadn't expected Thompson to try bribing his way out of this. Compensation? I asked. What kind of compensation are we talking about? $20,000 cash in exchange for your silence about this whole affair. I looked at Sarah, whose face had gone white. Her lover was trying to buy his way out of their relationship. That's very generous, I said. But I have a counteroffer. I'm listening. You resign from your law firm, leave town, and never contact my wife again. In return, I don't send the recording of our conversation to the Connecticut Bar Association's Ethics Committee. You can't be serious. Oh, I'm very serious. You see, Robert, I've done some research on you. This isn't your first affair with a subordinate, is it? There was that paralegal 3 years ago and the court reporter before that. The Bar Association might be very interested in a pattern of predatory behavior toward employees. Silence on the line. You're blackmailing me, Thompson said finally. I'm offering you a choice. The same kind of choice you offered me when you decided to seduce my wife. The difference is I'm doing it openly. This is extortion. No, this is consequences. You can take my offer, or you can explain to your partners why their senior associate is featured in a viral video titled "Lawyer Gets Green with Envy." Your choice. The line went dead. Sarah stared at me with something approaching awe. I never knew you could be so cold, calculating, ruthless, she said. You're right, I said. You didn't know me at all. You knew the version of me that paid your bills and fixed your computer problems and pretended not to notice when you came home smelling like another man's cologne. That's not fair. What's not fair is spending 6 months being made a fool of by the two people I trusted most. What's not fair is coming home every day to a wife who was counting the hours until she could run off to her lover. What's not fair is working overtime to pay for the hotel rooms where you mocked our marriage. My phone rang again. Sarah's friend, Jessica. Don't answer it, Sarah said quickly. She doesn't know anything about this. I answered anyway. Hi, Jessica. Danny. Oh, good. You answered. I've been trying to reach Sarah all day, but she's not picking up her phone. Is everything okay? There are these crazy videos going around social media about some kind of chemical accident at a hotel, and people are saying it looks like Sarah. I handed the phone to Sarah. Your friend wants to chat. Sarah's conversation with Jessica was painful to listen to. Stammered excuses, obvious lies, desperate attempts to control the narrative. Jessica wasn't buying any of it. Sarah, honey, the whole town is talking about this, Jessica said, her voice carrying clearly through the phone. The video shows you and Robert Thompson coming out of a hotel room covered in green stuff, both of you barely dressed. What am I supposed to tell people when they ask me about it? Tell them it was a work accident, Sarah pleaded. We were reviewing documents and there was a chemical spill in a hotel room at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Come on, Sarah. I'm your friend, but I'm not stupid. After Sarah hung up, she turned to me with desperation in her eyes. Jessica's going to tell everyone, she said. By tomorrow, the whole town will know. They already know, I replied. Social media works fast in small towns. My career is ruined. My reputation is destroyed. My friends won't talk to me. Probably, I agreed. That's what happens when you make spectacularly poor choices in public. You did this on purpose. You wanted me to be humiliated. I wanted you to face consequences. There's a difference. Sarah stood up, pacing our living room like a caged animal. What if I told you I was pregnant? I looked up from my laptop. Are you? What if I was? Are you pregnant, Sarah? I could be. We haven't been careful lately. When you say we, are you talking about us or you and Thompson? Her face went red. Us. You and me. Your baby. I pulled up a calendar on my laptop. Interesting. According to my records, we haven't been intimate since March 15th. It's now May 23rd. So either you're claiming to be 2 months pregnant and just now noticing, or you're lying again. Sarah's shoulders slumped, her posture conveying defeat. It could be yours, she mumbled, her voice barely a whisper. Could be, I countered. That's not how paternity works, Sarah. Either the baby is mine, or it's Thompson's, or there is no baby. Which one is it? There's no baby, she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. I thought maybe if you believed I was pregnant, you'd be willing to work things out. So, you lied again, I stated, the weight of her deception pressing down on me. Even now, when everything is falling apart, you're still lying to me. I'm desperate, Danny, she pleaded, her voice cracking. I don't know what else to do. You could try telling the truth just once for novelty's sake, I retorted, my patience wearing thin. That night, Sarah slept in the guest room, a stark reminder of the chasm that had opened between us. I lay in our bed, staring at the ceiling, the silent weight of my crumbling marriage pressing down on me. It should have hurt more. The fact that it didn't probably spoke volumes about how deeply moribund our relationship had become long before I discovered that lubricant in her purse, a chilling physical manifestation of her infidelity. The next morning brought a fresh wave of revelations. Thompson had indeed resigned from his law firm, citing personal health issues. The local newspaper ran a small, almost insignificant item about it, mentioning his departure from town to pursue unspecified opportunities elsewhere. Sarah came downstairs looking like death warmed over. The green dye was starting to fade, leaving her with a sickly yellow tint that somehow looked even worse than the vibrant green it had been. "Robert's gone," she announced, her voice flat, devoid of emotion. "He texted me this morning. He's leaving Connecticut. Good for him. He said he couldn't handle the pressure, the humiliation," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "His law partners were asking too many questions." That sounded about right. She paused, clearly struggling to articulate the next part. He said I was on my own now, that he never promised me anything beyond what we had." "And what did you have, Sarah?" I asked, my voice laced with a mixture of anger and disappointment. "Hotel rooms, lunch dates, text messages?" She laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. 6 months of my marriage for hotel rooms and text messages. Was it worth it? She looked at me, her eyes empty, devoid of any spark of life or remorse. "What do you think?" "I think you traded a marriage for an infatuation," I replied, my voice steady. "I think you convinced yourself that what you were doing was romantic and exciting when it was just sordid and selfish. And I think you're only sorry because you got caught." "That's not true, is it?" I pressed, wanting to know the truth, even though I already suspected the answer. "If my little chemistry experiment hadn't happened, would you have ended the affair? Would you have come home and confessed everything? Or would you still be sneaking around behind my back?" Sarah couldn't answer. Her silence was a deafening confession. The divorce papers were filed the following Monday. Sarah didn't contest anything. She couldn't afford a lawyer, and frankly, she had no legitimate grounds to contest the proceedings. I kept the house, the savings account, and both cars. She kept her student loans and her substantial credit card debt, a fitting reflection of her irresponsible choices. 6 months later, I was sitting at Murphy's Tavern with my buddy Mike, watching a basketball game and enjoying the first truly peaceful evening I'd had in years. "Ever wonder what happened to Thompson?" Mike asked, taking a slow sip of his beer. "Not really," I replied honestly. "Don't care." "Heard he's practicing insurance law in Florida now," Mike offered. "Ambulance chaser stuff. Quite a come-down from corporate litigation." I nodded, acknowledging the information, though it held little significance for me. "And Sarah? What about her?" Mike inquired. "Heard she's working at that call center outside Hartford, living in some apartment complex with thin walls and loud neighbors." I shrugged, my tone nonchalant. "People make choices." "You did what you had to do," Mike said quietly, offering a measure of understanding. "I did what they forced me to do," I corrected, a subtle emphasis on the pronoun. "They wrote the playbook. I just used their own rules against them." My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was Sarah. The message read, "Danny, this is Sarah. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need you to know something. I realize now what I lost when I lost you. Robert was never going to leave his world for me. He was never going to choose me over his reputation. I threw away 8 years of marriage for 6 months of lies. I know you'll never forgive me, and I don't deserve forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I understand now what I had, what I destroyed. I hope you find someone who appreciates you the way I should have." I deleted the message without responding. Some guys hire private investigators when they want revenge. Some go for dramatic confrontations or public scenes. Some key cars or spread rumors. Me? I prefer a more scientific approach. A little chemistry, a lot of patience, and the understanding that the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies, it's making them destroy themselves. I finished my beer, paid my tab, and walked out into the cool evening air. Behind me, Murphy's Tavern buzzed with conversation and laughter, life continuing its relentless march forward. Tomorrow might bring another call from Sarah or news about Thompson's continuing downward spiral. There might be more drama, more attempts to drag me back into their self-created chaos. But tonight, I was free. Free of their lies, their games, their toxic drama. Free to build a life based on honesty instead of deception. I drove home to my quiet house, a sanctuary of peace where nobody was lying to me, where nobody was plotting betrayals over breakfast, where I could sleep peacefully without wondering where my spouse really was or who they were really with. Some people might say I went too far, that turning someone green and destroying their career was excessive punishment for an affair. But those people didn't spend months being systematically lied to and humiliated. They didn't discover evidence of betrayal while looking for car keys. They didn't hear their spouse laughing about their inadequacies with their lover. I gave Sarah and Thompson exactly what they gave me, a masterclass in consequences. The only difference was that mine came with a dash of brilliant green for emphasis. And honestly, I haven't lost a minute of sleep over it. The best part? Every time someone in town sees a bright green shirt or a bottle of food coloring, they remember the green affair and chuckle. Sarah and Thompson became a cautionary tale, a stark reminder that in small towns, secrets don't stay secret for long. Meanwhile, I've got my house, my peace of mind, and a reputation as the guy who turned adultery into performance art. Not everyone gets to become a local legend for their divorce story. Some people settle for closure. I went for color, and let me tell you, brilliant green was exactly the right choice.